By Marta Rodriguez, Jason Trillanos, and Audrey Mustafa. Rehabilitation work. In order to determine if rehabilitation is adequate for those who are incarcerated, we must first examine the pros and cons of punishment versus rehabilitation. In this presentation, we will discuss which option is most appropriate for those who are incarcerated. The history according to the Journal of Punishment versus Rehabilitation in the Criminal Justice System, Pros and Cons. The purpose of the prison system in the U.S. is based on teaching those who have committed a crime a lesson, which to never commit the crime again in the future by depriving them of their freedom. Those who are punished are set as an example to society to prevent others from committing the same crime. If we look back to the late 1970s, the prime focus was rehabilitation, where prisoners were allowed to obtain skills as well as work on their mental health with psychologists to help them reintegrate back into society as law-abiding citizens. Fortunately, rehabilitation took a back seat to the Get Tough on Crime policy that began with President Nixon and then followed by President Reagan. The consequences for this new policy did the opposite of its intention, which was to reduce crime, but instead of the rate in crime reducing in the U.S., it had an increase. The increase came with just punishment instead of rehabilitating. Those who were incarcerated faced the nature and practices that were put into place, basically putting prisoners in a cell so they can have time to think about the crime they committed. Prisoners are then treated at times with disrespect and live day to day under harsh conditions. It does the opposite of its intention, which was for them to go out into society and never return. What punishment has done is basically put a band-aid on the issue instead of treating the underlying issue of why they have committed the crime to begin with. The cons. Prison does not rehabilitate and it's not a good environment to promote rehabilitation. The environment in prison is very violent and nasty place to live. Those locked up are locked up with other career criminals which breeds more bad behavior. It's like the old saying, show me your friends and they'll show you your future. In prison, inmates are forced to live around and socialize with other criminals. Some of these criminals may just be locked up for petty crimes. However, they are locked up with killers, thieves, and those who have committed egregious crimes will have a negative influence on even the pettiest of criminals. It is also important to note that in many prisons, inmates are forced to join gangs to survive. Without the protection of gang affiliation, prisoners will be a lone wolf and it's open season on them because there will be virtually no consequences for messing with them. In order to join said gang, prisoners will often be tasked with violent acts as initiation so they can prove themselves as worthy assets to the gang. These gangs are often racially segregated, so along with the violence, these environments also breed hatred and racism. That prison does not rehabilitate is because of the rampant drug use that occurs behind bars. According to the National Institute of Health website, 85% of the prison population has an active substance use disorder or were incarcerated for a crime involving drugs or drug use. Now pair this with the fact that according to the Marshall Project, drug, alcohol intoxication, death increased by 611% between 2001 and 2018. How can one expect to successfully rehabilitate in this environment? To know that the expense to taxpayer that keeping prisoners locked up causes. It is the taxpayer's responsibility to fork over the funds for prisoners, room and board, along with the cost of feeding them 3 square meals a day. Overall, we as a group feel as though prison is unsuccessful in rehabilitation. and is more of a place to lock up the people the government does not want in our society. We should all come to an agreement thus far that our prison system is broken and that we must find ways to implement change in order to make things work for everyone involved. Here in the United States, there are about 2 million people incarcerated in the U.S. compared to other places in the world. Although imprisonment may take away criminals from society for a period of time, it does not stop those in prison from returning to it. We also must come to the realization that the majority of those who are incarcerated are poor people of color. The article, Rethinking Prison as a Deterrent to Future Crimes, as shown on this graph, it shows an estimate of reincarceration in 2018. The percentage of rearrest after 3 to 9 years, which proves that incarceration without rehabilitation does not stop those who are incarcerated from returning to prison. Justin McMillan works at Rikers Island providing a barista job training program to the prisoners that are incarcerated there. Let's hear from his point of view in regards to his opinion on how prison rehabilitation is beneficial to those who are incarcerated at Rikers.
Hi, can you tell me your name and what do you do for work?
My name is Justin McMillan, and I teach a workforce development program on Rikers Island.
So, based on your experience running the program at Rikers, what have you experienced doing that?
So I think the main thing I experience is just seeing that a lot of times people in jail or aren't what you think they are, and they're just people who kind of made some mistakes or did them some things to get some money, and now they ended up in a bad situation.
Do you think that your training program helps them reintegrate into society?
Yeah, so I think I helped them think differently. It was like, oh yeah, I could get a job and I can actually work and make some money and not have to be in my cell all day. So maybe let me make a change when I get out of here, so I don't have to also be, back in this unhappy situation.
And what do you think needs to improve in regards to rehabilitation in the prison system? Like with your training, what is more that is needed?
I think prison systems need more resources, and I think there needs to be less of a focus on numbers and more of a focus on actually seeing how you can help people and where they could go from, being in jail.
And how long does the training program last?
Our training program lasts 3 weeks, so students get a total of 3 days a week to work with me.
Okay, and then does it last the whole year round or only part time?
It lasts part of the year, so basically during the time they're running schools, that's when we're doing the program.
Do you think that's helpful that they don't have that rehabilitation during the summer?
No, I think that summer period is probably the worst time for them because, Rikers is also known as the oven, so it gets super, super hot, so they can't get out their cells. They don't get that much time to go outside. And I think it's just a waste for them to not be doing anything productive when they're there.
So you think that more resources needs to be put into the rehabilitation programs even during the summer for them to be successful when they come out?
Yeah, I think it needs a combination of better resources and also beautifying the actual spaces. I think the way the space look also has an effect on how people act, so it looks like an old decrepit jail. It kind of makes people's mental health a lot worse.
When thinking of the pros, we must first be realistic. We know as a society we cannot get rid of prisons. We know that there are some members of society who are truly dangerous and who are a great risk to public safety. We must understand that prison may not fix them overall, and we are keeping society safe while they are in prison. However, research shows that recidivism does not work with lower level crime. Today, there are policymakers that are now realizing that a change needs to happen in these cases. Some states that are working on making new reforms to reduce the population in jails. And although the United States still has one of the highest rates of those incarcerated, this is slowly beginning to change. If we use as an example other rehabilitation programs in other countries, such as Norway, for example, that offer high school and college courses along with realistic job opportunities, drug rehabilitation, art programs, as well as social services, it shows that there is a reduction of 29% of those who return to prison. And those incarcerated, there are in the US, especially when it comes to lower level crimes. The fact is that the large percentage of mostly people of color that come from poor communities. If we implement what Norway has done with their prison rehabilitation to those who are incarcerated here, we'll give them an opportunity to break generational chains of poverty, as well as giving them an opportunity to support their families adequately without turning into a life of crime, which will then reduce the number of them returning to prison. The pros of rehabilitation. Rehabilitation is the process of integrating formerly incarcerated people back into society. This includes helping them with their mental health, providing education, addiction, and violent rehab programs, usually used on juveniles. These programs are less costly, they are most effective than um, punishment, and it prevents formerly incarcerated people from going back into the system. It also creates a more peaceful society and it reduces crime. Compare and contrast with punishment regarding rehabilitation. If we look at it, punishment focuses on serving justice for people's crime, but rehabilitation allows people to learn from their mistakes. Punishment makes people pay for their crimes. Rehabilitation creates an overall change in society by reforming the criminal. Severe punishment can lead to people supporting crime and making people believe they deserve to be in jail, while rehabilitation reinforces healthy behaviors and makes them feel useful in society. Punishment isolates people, causing it difficult to come back into society, while rehabilitation programs help people, especially for their needs in order to become better citizens. Here are the citations. We would like to thank you for being a part of our presentation and we hope that you enjoy it. Thank you.